Hello, Gems. Welcome to another episode of Tiaras and Tech. I'm your host, Shelley Benhoff, and today I'm talking about career longevity with Julie Lerman. She is a Microsoft MVP, Microsoft Regional Director, Docker Captain, and Pluralsight author. She is such an inspiration to me, and we had a lot of fun talking about her career as a developer, author, and speaker spanning over 30 years. We talk about how she got started, as well as her amazing experience in entity framework and many stories along the way. Without further ado, on to the interview. Hi, Julie.
Hey, Shelley, how are you doing?
I'm so good. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it more than you'll ever know.
Oh, well, it was really a great opportunity and excuse to actually meet as close to in person as we ever have before.
I know, exactly. I like sometime in the future, we will absolutely meet in person and party and, have a good time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yay.
So how about you tell us who you are, what you are working on, and please list all of your awards because you have so many.
So my name's Julie Lerman. I say I'm a software developer, although I guess, I do a little less actual development, but I've been a software developer for over 30 years. And these days what I do more is I coach software teams, and also I do a lot of research and then create content. So we know each other through Pluralsight, creating Pluralsight videos, and I've written books and speak at a lot of conferences and stuff like that. But and I love that, but I also really love working with teams, software teams, and kind of bringing that experience that, I've been around for a long time, experience to a team when maybe they don't have people who've got that, broad and long experience. So let's see, some are awards, some are not really. So the award is, I have been a Microsoft MVP since 2003 every year. So
Wow.
That's something that's awarded each year. And that's related to really kind of community work. So, the fact that I'm speaking at conferences and, doing things like that, and that related to Microsoft technologies. I've been a Microsoft regional director for, I think, 5 years. So it's not really a reward. It's a program. And it's always important to explain, when you're a Microsoft regional director, you don't work for Microsoft, you don't have a region, and you don't direct anything. It's just people for years are like, maybe we should change the name of the program. But what it is a group of people who are working in Microsoft technologies around the world. I think there's like 200 that are, it's definitely a recognition, but also kind of trusted advisors to Microsoft. And yeah, so it's more like that. So that, we have conversations with people that, you don't normally have access to, and they will find out from us, like, ask things of us that, to get our advice. Let's see, Docker Captain. I think that's it.
I mean, that's a lot. That's really a lot. And you are so inspirational to me.
Thanks, Shelley.
I remember wanting to know you, but I didn't just want to bombard you with messages. I think you're great. So I danced around you on Twitter and the Pluralsight author Slack. The day you the day you slid into my DMs, I was like, Oh my God.
It's really nice to hear that what I do is inspirational to other people in technology and other women in technology. But on the other hand, yeah, I've been around a while, but it's like we're all in this together.
Yeah.
I don't see it, and I always kind of step back when people say things like that, just because I'm like, but
exactly. It's like,
yeah,
but I'm just a person. Yeah.
Right. But it's also really nice to know that whatever it is I'm doing has some positive effect on other people in the community. So
absolutely. Yay. Yes. So let's talk about how you started. How did a, young Julie get interested in programming, and why have you stayed for over 30 years?
That's the easier one to answer. The first one, I'll try to make it short. I actually took, first of all, I started before we had the internet, right? So it wasn't like all this information was just at your fingertips and readily available.
Honestly, I also started before we had the internet.
We look so young.
Yeah.
So I went to a small liberal arts, all women's college, although it's now co-ed, called Wells College. Shout out to Wells College.
Nice.
And I took one programming class back in do the math back then. Back then, where we had the computers were Heath kits built by the math professors, one of whom was a woman, right? So here I was at an all women's college, learning math from a woman, Carol Shalepsky, and Arnold, her husband. They were the math professors, and in a place where you don't stop and think that, I shouldn't be doing this because, I'm a girl. Although I had already had a ton of that background because my mom was a total ball buster. So okay to say that?
I think we have that in common.
She was running around the world. She was going out to Hollywood. She was just doing all kinds of stuff. She did not like being called a feminist. But she, so, we grew up just, do whatever, right? There was no concept of it because of having that kind of a role model, and, and my dad being just so enabling of all that too. Anyway, so yeah, I took that one course, just one. I was a history major, and wanted to get into the film industry, right? But I moved to New York and, got good advice from my parents, like, you're not going to just jump into the film industry, unless it's couch casting. So, get some kind of business experience, get up, and then move over, right? So I just, ended up kind of glomming onto computers. I got a kind of a dumb job at Penthouse Corporation. Because they also published Omni magazine. That was really the idea. I was like, well, maybe I can get over to there. Anyway, there was one computer in that whole huge company back then, 1,000 people. And it quickly ended up on my desk because I was figuring out how to use that. And people were asking me, as they started getting more computers, people asked me for help, and I was figuring things out, yada, yada, yada. It's just kind of all like self-taught, went from there. Then I was at another job and somebody had left behind a DBase 3 book. I still have it because, it was, is it on the other shelf?
Yeah, I absolutely still have some books from a long time ago.
Yeah, but this was a book. I'm just, why it's not right accessible on my shelf? Oh, it's because I'm wearing my glasses. Anyway, I still have it because, that was the thing that changed my life, right? Somebody had left behind this dog-eared building applications with DBase 3, and I was sick of filing. So I started, writing software to help make my job easier.
That's
Right.
amazing.
And that,
Yeah.
right. And so it was really self-taught, and really for a good 10 or 15 years before I had any kind of instruction, and then found a community in the Fox Pro community in New York City. My first training, I picked myself up, paid for it. I was self-employed by then, and flew myself out to California to take a class with Deborah Carrata,
Oh, I love her.
who was like, oh my God, I read your books. And now she, all these years later, she and I are friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so many of us just learned so much from her. So that was kind of how I got started, and why I'm still in it, because it keeps changing, and it's always fun to just keep figuring out the new stuff. They keep moving the cheese. So, I'm following the cheese for 30 years.
Exactly. Yeah. I have a love-hate relationship with always having to learn, like all kinds of concepts, but overall, when I master something, is like the best feeling in the world. Recently, I learned Kubernetes, and
bravo.
I could not get the site to come up. Like, I was like, what is wrong? It took me like 2 or 3 weeks. It was a really long time. When that site came up, I cried.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
Tears.
I know the feeling. I have a talk that I've done. I've done it as a keynote at a bunch of conferences, and it's about our process of learning, and not beating yourself up. And I have this slide called like Julie's 7 steps, and it's everybody's 7 steps. It's like, you hear about a new thing, you kind of like set it aside, but you're like, oh, maybe interesting, right? And then you get curious and start digging in, and then it just is so hard, and it's so confusing because it's all new things. And then all of a sudden you have your aha moment, and it's like, oh my God, it's great. And then we just do it to ourselves over and over again, but you always know that reward's coming at the end.
Exactly.
You always know it's there.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I did not always know. I questioned myself literally until this year. This year was the first time I was like, maybe I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. I'm sorry for everybody who goes through that, because
exactly.
we all do. And unfortunately, we constantly do. I mean, I still have, huge imposter syndrome on so many levels, especially with this last year and a half of not speaking at conferences.
Yeah, it's weird.
A little scared to do it again, because I'm like, do I have anything to say?
Oh, you have things to say.
Just ask me a question. Blah, 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 blah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's cool.
Do I have something new to say? Usually is the, the question.
Yeah.
Yes. New and really interesting. Anyway.
To me, the most interesting talks are when people have struggled with something and they want to teach, how not to struggle with that thing, because ultimately we want to help people not struggle as authors and instructors. Kind of the point.
We go through a lot, like the work you did to learn Kubernetes. Now when you're teaching it, you can find that, lead people through the quicker path, right? And even we can even say, by the way, this thing, I really had a hard time with it. So, you might hit this, and this. And if you do, understand that this is because of that, you know what I mean? Like but, we're just going to give you the shortcut, but not, the only thing is, what I don't like is only showing people the happy path, because nobody's ever going to have that experience.
Nobody will. Absolutely. No. Yeah. I mean,
and seeing that we did it too.
Robot.
Yeah. People are like, oh my God, you're so smart. I'm like, I'm not so smart. I'm just a pit bull. Right.
With and lipstick. Experienced. Yeah. I mean,
yeah. And I know how it goes.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
and it's almost always the same.
Yeah. So that experience isn't what makes it, the experience doesn't make it easier for me to get from point A to B. It makes it so that when I'm struggling, I don't beat myself up as much about it. Like, I know, right? I know. What's going on.
I hope to reach that one day. I'm like just starting to, but yeah. So let's talk about your work with entity framework. For those of you who don't know, Julie is like the person on Pluralsight for that specific technology.
Right. And by the way, you know, I know it's not what you do, so no big, you know, like that's like Kubernetes. Yes, I can spell it K8S. Right. That's my area of expertise with Kubernetes. So, you know, anyway, so just for those of you who don't understand what I just said, that's how people write it out with a K and the 8 in the middle and the S. And I remember finding out why that is at one point, but now I can't remember. Do you? No?
Yeah. So it's K. Uberneti is 8
Greek. Yeah. Right. Right.
My husband figured that out. He's not a dev. He just looked at the word and was like, oh yeah, okay, here it is. I've been working with Kubernetes for like a while and I never even thought about that. He used the word once and he's like, that's what it is.
Well, that's because when you were looking at the word, you're thinking about all of the problems, and he just saw those letters. Yeah, that's all he saw, right? I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So entity framework. So entity framework is Microsoft's data access platform. So it's like the APIs for getting data in and out of your .NET applications. So
I'm very familiar.
.NET. Okay. And well, I'm just saying that for
the audience. Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody. So, you know, it's just but it's not a database. Like people think I'm like a DBA, like a database administrator. I'm like, no, I'm really, really bad at that. Right. So this is just about getting the data in and out of your application. So I've always been kind of a data nerd. You know, FoxPro, right? I used to Access, right? So it's all, you know, like my focus was, you know, I really, and I love like slicing and dicing data, like doing queries and trying to answer questions. I don't do big data. I don't do machine learning or anything like that. But, you know, if I've got to open up SQL Server and try to write some queries, although thanks to this data access platform, my query skills, my SQL skills are so bad now. I have to Google everything.
Same.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. So, oh my gosh, I had to write a group by statement the other day, and it took me hours because, you know, like, anyway, so, you know, we're great at some things and we're not experts at the other things. So Microsoft, I've always worked with like the predecessors like ADO.NET and RDO. And so Microsoft has had a whole bunch. And in 2006, I got invited to a special meeting. There was a Tech Ed, Microsoft's big developer conference. It was in Boston. And there was this little side meeting, like 6 people got invited. And they were showing us this new object relational mapper. Now, they're referred to as ORMs. ORMs weren't new. And I'm not still speaking to audience. Why stop and explain things, right? It's why we do Pluralsight videos. Like we just can't help ourselves. So I'd never used an ORM before, although they were prevalent. Microsoft had actually been out of the gate a couple of times trying to do ORMs, and like at the last minute just pulled back on it. So when they started with this one, so for me, I was like, oh, cool, because I've never seen one before. This is interesting. A lot of other people who are familiar with ORMs and also the history, they're like, oh, you know, they tried twice before. Like, you know, we're not going to waste any time with this. So I was having a lot of fun with it. And because it was brand new, there was no documentation. Microsoft did not have, all of the transparency they do now, right? So everything I was doing, I was figuring out because I figured it out, which was really gratifying. And, I was still interacting with data. And so I would start writing articles, about it while they were developing it, right? And so people, I was like the only one because everybody else was like, well, they released it. And they said, this is our main data access now. And everybody was like, well, Julie, you're the only one in the world who knows anything about how this works.
Wow.
And in fact, even on the team, everybody was kind of specialized. And I was the only person who kind of had the whole scope of it. So in a way, I had more expertise than people who were working on the product, right? So
that's amazing.
Crazy. Right. And so suddenly I was the worldwide expert in entity framework. And I'd write an article and I'd be, they are like, Julie, it cannot be more than 5,000 words. That's already too long. I'm like, but, I was like exploding with all of this information I learned. And that's why I wrote the books. I wrote like a my first one, 800-page book on the entity framework.
Wow.
Now there's like, cool, right? But then if you think about that whole joke, have you ever seen when people compare like JavaScript, and then JavaScript, the important parts, and like one of the books is 100 pages long, the other book is like 1,500 pages long.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So, if it takes that much effort to describe it, like, anyway, so, I have done that and did the courses on Pluralsight. This is really kind of cool how I started doing Pluralsight.
I was just about to ask.
It's related to entity framework. So Microsoft had asked me to do a series of little videos for their website on entity framework. And, we'd gone back and forth with the contract and all that. I'd never really done a project like that before. So it was a big deal working all of that out and planning it and everything. And I had just signed the contract. And then I was in Maine. I went to Maine to speak at, I went to Maine to do some consulting. And while I was there, Portland, Maine, not in the middle of summer when all the big, huge boats full of tourists are there, it was awesome. And while I was there, I got an email from Fritz Onion, who was at that time one of the partners at Pluralsight. And they had just started transitioning from being a training company to doing the online videos because they realized it's more, they can spread that out a lot further.
Yep.
And so we went out to dinner and he asked me to essentially do the same thing I just contracted with Microsoft to do. And I was like, conflict of interest. I don't know. I wish I could. So actually Pluralsight and Microsoft worked something out where I did the videos. Pluralsight paid me for them. And I used Pluralsight's branding in the videos on, and then they went on to Microsoft's website and on Pluralsight. And so that's how I did the first videos. That was like 11 years ago or so. Yeah, there were like 30 authors when I started.
Yeah. And I think
30.
Like now it's hundreds, right?
No,
It's just...
no.
No,
like more like over 1,000, maybe 1,500.
Okay. Yeah.
Because they've also, they've started out just Microsoft and now it's just so much. But
it's everything.
Yeah. And
Exactly.
so it's been amazing. It's an amazing ride with
That's
Pluralsight.
An amazing story. I love Pluralsight. It has changed my life beyond belief. Like, it's pretty
self-employed.
Crazy. Yeah,
that's a
self-employed
huge thing.
Now.
Yeah. How long have you been self-employed now?
Since January.
Oh, this year.
Yep.
Great.
This is my first year. It's a struggle to not have steady income, but I was prepared for this.
Oh, it's
So
good.
it's
And
fine.
one of the interesting problems I think we who are self-employed have is this worry of it being feast or famine,
Right.
and having a hard time saying no to anything, and then going, oh shit, how am I going to do all these things I said I would do? Like somehow
Oh,
doing it.
I do that all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
And it's
And
terrible.
I've gotten to the point, I'm quite a bit older than you. I've gotten to a point in my life where I don't want to be, killing myself working 80 hours a week anymore. And I won't
Yep.
do it. So I'm being a lot more careful about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I am exactly the same. I had worked way too hard. I mean, I had jobs where I was working overtime. And then on top of that, I was a Pluralsight author, which I
I don't know how
enjoyed.
people do it, which
It
is,
was really
yeah,
hard. I did
yeah,
that for
yeah.
like 4 years. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is.
Because when I'm working on a course, I'm basically, that's my job
Yeah.
for
And it's
the
fun.
period of the course. Although you crank them out, it still takes me months and months.
I feel slow, actually. I had planned to crank out 8 courses this year. We might do 5 or 6
Yeah. Yeah.
if we're lucky. Yeah. So it takes
Yeah.
a long
Everybody has
time.
their process,
Yeah.
right? That's part of it, right? Everybody's got a
Right.
process that works. And some people are just so natural. It seems like they just turn the camera on and turn the video recording on and they go. I mean, they plan, right? They plan and all of
Sure.
that, but still I have to do like many layers. I
Yeah.
have to write and record, and I can't do the audio and coding at the
Screen.
same
Yeah.
time. I
Same.
have to do them separately and then edit them. Yeah, it's just,
Yeah.
and I've
That
been,
is really, really hard.
yeah.
Like, recording separately, people don't realize how much time it takes to line up the screen and the audio.
Yeah. Well, I'm really, if I decide not to do Pluralsight courses anymore, I will just put myself out there as an editor because I'm really good in Camtasia.
I'm sure. Yeah, I am not, because early on I was like, I cannot edit myself. I cannot hear myself talk. I hate it. So
Huh. So you've got somebody to do that.
yeah,
I've
my
tried. I'm a control freak. I can't handle it. I have to do every bit of it myself. It's
yeah,
stupid.
I was surprised how my husband, who, is not a dev in the slightest, he, offered to edit my stuff. And I was like,
It's
okay,
amazing.
well,
Yeah.
go ahead and try. He actually one time caught a mistake I had made in the code. He was like, so I think there's supposed to be an if statement here because that's what you say. And I don't see it.
That shows what a great teacher you are. That's amazing.
Because yeah, he's learned stuff through
Yep.
having to edit. But I just like, people who aren't technical can absolutely edit, technical productions and stuff.
Right.
So
right. Well, if he's editing video, he's pretty technical also.
that's what I said. Yeah, absolutely.
He's just not, a coder. That's all.
Yeah, totally.
There's a woman named Mary Girasol or Girasol. I know her mostly from Twitter. She's doing a lot of training to help people move into tech jobs, tech roles. And there's something that she's done recently. I'm really curious to see it. She did this kind of webinar and she's really savvy. She's like charging for all her webinars and stuff. And she's just, and she's trying to help other people make money. Right. And help people start building generational wealth in our community. And, it's amazing. So this one topic she was doing was about boring jobs in tech that pay well.
Yeah.
Right? Like
That's
that's
funny.
brilliant, right?
It is
Like
brilliant.
right, because there's all this conversations about, oh, you have to, be like so passionate. You shouldn't be doing it just for the money. It was like, wait a minute, it's a job.
It's a
A
job.
job is
Yeah.
for money, so you can live, right? And she's like, yeah, maybe you just want a good high paying job in tech. These get overlooked. Everybody's like, oh, code, or UI, or JavaScript or whatever. And she's like, here's all these other kinds of tech jobs that they might be a little less exciting, but they pay really well, right?
Yeah.
And making sure people are aware of them, and like, oh, that's get that whole like, oh, but I'm not technical, like,
Absolutely.
Somebody who's like an amazing knitter, right? Like, I can't knit, right? Like these,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Or like an amazing cook it makes all these great recipes, and like, it's all technical.
Right. Yeah. I am so passionate about letting people know who work in tech, like that they are technical, and also that they work in tech. People who are like management, or especially testers. I've seen this so many times where testers don't think that they're technical, but they couldn't test for technical
I
issues
can't
if
even
you weren't
put that
technical.
together.
Yeah.
Right. Wow.
Like seriously, you don't have to code to be technical.
Yeah, actually, I know that my friend Lisa Crispin, who she is like a revered person in like automated technology, automated testing. She's written books, she speaks at conferences all over the world. She is in that, in like the agile and testing community, she is like high goddess, right? And she's always beating herself up about, that she doesn't have really good coding skills, and it's so hard for her to learn. And it's just like,
No, you're amazing.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I think part of it is that as women, if we have confidence in anything, we're like bragging about it or something. And so a lot of us minimize it, I think. But you know me, I've started to give zero fucks. So, I will celebrate all of my all of my things. But
for you,
at times, like, I question, why am I still here? Why am I still in tech? But the answer is always that I love to code, and nobody will ever tell me what to do with my life. Like,
yeah, this is probably why I'm self-employed.
that's exactly why I'm self-employed. Yep.
Microsoft has come after me a number of times to come work for them, and my husband always likes to remind me, maybe not a good idea, because you don't like being told what to do.
I'm the same. I hate it.
Sorry.
Yeah, especially when like I know I'm right, and I've taught stuff, and somebody tells me I'm wrong, and then doesn't have anything to back up why they think that. Like, okay, tell me
publish
I'm wrong,
a book and put
like...
it on Amazon, and then look at the reviews.
Yeah.
Speaking of Microsoft conference, like the old days of Microsoft conference, where people are evaluating you and rating you, and then you go into the speaker room, and there's this like competition of your scores, and
What?
it was awful.
Oh
it
my
was
God.
yeah,
I've never
I
heard
hated
that.
it. The only time I loved it was when I did a co-presented with this guy Chris Sells, who's brilliant and a brilliant live coder, and we did this amazing session, And it was really funny because we were giving each other shit the whole time. I was presenting the ideas and he was live coding the whole time, which
That's
is
awesome. Yeah.
Like, because you can't, it's so hard to, it's like, you know, if I could split myself in two. Anyway, that was like the highest rated session of, like, you know, beyond anything
Nice.
I've ever done. So it was fun to go in the speaker room and see, like, we were way up high. I'm like, oh my God, the only time in my life. There was like 700 people in the room, and
Whoa,
yeah.
that's a lot.
And there was only one person, like, in the evals who kind of complained about, you know, that it was more like it was a little too entertaining, but, you know,
too
that's what it has
entertaining.
Yeah, like, not
my.
hardcore enough. And
No.
that's the funny part about that is that usually when I mean, I still have fun when I'm presenting, but I'm like, this is serious. I've got all this information I need to relay to you. So I'm like, you know, I'm like, not, you know, I'm not putting on a show, right? Because I'm too busy.
Yeah, I'm actually the opposite. I am putting on a show. I am trying to educate in an entertaining way, which is exactly why I started to wear tiaras while I spoke.
Awesome.
And the first time I had a moderator and he messaged me before and was like, should I wear a tiara? And he did. We didn't talk about it. We just acted like it was totally normal.
Oh, I love it.
And
I'm like, oh, what do I have that could be a tiara? I still have this funny hat that has a twirly thing on it. That's all.
That's awesome.
Anyway.
Yeah. So over the years, in tech, since you have worked, you know, through many decades, have you had any challenges as a woman overall?
You know, I don't know if I like to forget things, or I'm naive about it, about some of my experiences. I don't know if I don't know if that was because I was a woman. I know, you know, I've definitely had challenges. I do think that with some of the jobs, I think the way I was treated, and I was young also, you know, in my 20s. I think I was treated the way I was treated because, you know, I was a young girl.
Yeah.
And yeah, I you know, mostly I think that the two situations that are memorable for me were when I had enough and I found myself another job and I gave my 2 weeks notice. This happened at two jobs. At one job, the guy who was the head of the whole big department, he was a Navy SEAL. And you ever hear how, like, Navy SEALs are, like, you know, really hardcore, excellent managers, like, in terms of getting things done and everything. And he'd always championed me because I was doing some great things, right? Really innovative things. But my boss left and they didn't give me his job. They hired some random outside guy and I was still doing the job for him, right? And I just finally was like, I found another job, gave my notice, and the Navy SEAL came into my cubicle and you know, was offering a promotion, a big salary, and all this kind of stuff, like if I would stay. And I said, you know, I've already made this other commitment, and, you know, it's kind of too little too late.
Yeah.
I don't know how I explained it. And suddenly he turned from Dr. Jekyll to Mr. Hyde, or was it the other way around? And he was threatening me. And I was terrified, but I somehow held my ground. And I'd been through something similar to that before, you know, when I was like 24, and it was the same kind of situation. That was the place where I taught myself to program the first time with that Fox Pro book. And owner of the company, somebody who, again, I looked up to, was like a father figure to me. And it was the same kind of thing. I'd gotten over, I'd done all this innovative stuff and got overlooked when it came to, to salary promotions kind of stuff. And I finally was like, and I, went and found another job. And he did the same thing, brought me to his office, offered me a promotion, offered me a raise, offered me all this stuff. And I said, I'm really sorry, I've already made this other commitment.
Yeah.
Right. And it was the same thing, right? He just turned evil and started railing on me, right? Both scenarios made me say I made the right decision.
There you go. Absolutely.
But that was hard, especially when when I was like 24. That was, no, I did not start sobbing. No, I didn't give in, right? But I did not have the kind of, I didn't have that kind of confidence. I think, I wasn't like a real kick-ass kind of a person. I was a good girl. I really was. I was like a good girl. Right. And, so it was really, those are really interesting, difficult situations.
Yeah.
So, and I really think, I managed, what I say? It all goes into Julie soup. I've been saying that for so long, and it's true. I mean, all these experiences, like, I am who I am today because of them. So
exactly.
It was okay. Yeah. Aww. Yeah. And then I had people like, my mom and my dad I could talk to about these things. And they're like, go, Julie, good job. You're awesome.
Yeah. I've had experiences where managers, utterly failed me, and I left. And for me, in my everyday life, if I'm talking to a man and I disagree with them or I say no, that is the first reaction, is anger. And it's scary. Like you said, it's threatening, actually.
Yeah. But I don't have any strong memories of, other kinds of problems, sexual kind of harassment. I don't know. I think at this point, like in my current career, in my current role in the community, I think some of that has to do with the fact that I'm older and I have this respect and this reputation. So, or maybe it's just because I'm old. Like, I don't know.
You're not old, Julie.
Well, in, relative. Do you know what I mean? But I remember being at a conference. I was with a girlfriend. I was meeting her in her hotel lobby, and there were two guys there. And afterwards, when we went out, she's like, man, that guy was flirting with you so much. I'm like, who? What? She's like,
just
you're
went over.
So clueless, right? Because it just doesn't even, I'm married, and like, it just doesn't even occur to me.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm still flirtable? Cool.
I know. It's such a weird situation when you're older, that when you're flirted with or even harassed to a point, like it's,
I don't get it. I don't see it. I don't know. Yeah. Like that I could be so that weird. Clueless, but she still teases me. If she sees this, she's going to be like texting me going, yep, you are so clueless.
That is what happened.
But yeah, nothing, overt or awful, like so much of what we read about now, and what a lot of people are experiencing. A lot of people experience, not just women.
That is true. Yeah. I experienced it a lot more early on. Like, luckily for women, as we get older, like we aren't as out there.
I don't want to be invisible, but
yeah, same. Yeah. I would rather be respected for my mind and code than looks overall. Yeah. I think that's
in our important industry.
Just overall, honestly, in life.
Well, I'm just joking, like I said, once in a while at the grocery store, somebody like, it's just, and I'm just saying this. I hope I'm not horrifying anybody. I'm just saying this because it's been so long.
I understand. Yeah. As you know, I recently lost like a lot of weight, and I have noticed at the grocery store male clerks greeting me with a smile, and I'm just, noticed. Whereas when I weighed like 210 pounds, I was invisible. Yeah.
I'll tell you something really interesting. So I lost like 40 pounds a bunch of years ago, and it's just, made a difference. But the thing that was really noticeable to me was there were women in my kind of social circle that were suddenly paying attention to me that had not before. And that was really weird.
It's
weird.
Really strange.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Anyway,
what are you going to do?
Yeah. So back to tech.
So what advice do you have in terms of careers and handling situations?
Well, maybe some of it, handling the situation. So I am not somebody who you want to look to for advice of the really serious stuff that gets legal issues, right? Like I'm not giving that. I do not pretend to have good advice about that. But for, less big issues, I think some of it is, swallow that imposter syndrome. Sometimes you got to pretend like what I did when I was in those two particular situations with the manager and the owner, like, believe me, I just wanted to, slide down into a puddle and start crying. But I just, I just had to pretend just to get through that so that they did not see me, that they, if I didn't feel strong, they still saw me strong in terms of having, self-respect. And it makes me sad to see, well, anybody really, downplaying themselves and saying, I'm just, something, and constantly apologizing and, and all of that. It's hard. It's hard not to, because it's been ingrained into us. And sometimes you have to act, just act and pretend your way through it. Maybe it's a fake it till you make it. Right. But
Absolutely.
and then you'll see, maybe people responding to you differently. And like you've said, like you just starting to realize, maybe you're not an imposter. Well, the rest of us see that you're not. The rest of us are well aware of it.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Hard to... I always feel really strange when people like look at me and they think that I have my shit together. And I'm just like, I don't think so.
We're all like that. But, even the bottom line is, for me is, we absolutely, you belong where you want to be.
Yeah.
Right. You want to be in the tech industry, like, do what you want to do. Follow, I get it. I thinking about Mary Girasol, like, and this whole conversation that's been going on about, passion versus, it's okay to work for a salary, right? Like,
Yeah.
So there's your motivation, right? Whether it's, whichever your motivation is, right? But it breaks my heart to see people driven away from something that they really want to do because other people are assholes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I could talk to you about this all day, but unfortunately we do need to wrap up. So why don't you tell us, what you're working on and promote yourself.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually starting to say yes to conferences again, virtual, not ready to travel. So getting ready to speak at some conferences, and I love the variety. Some want me to talk about domain-driven design. I'm going to be keynoting a DDD conference, and they want, the conference is about learning DDD, and some people said, oh my gosh, that's what Julie, that's what she's always talking about. Not just here's how to do this thing, but how can we make it easier for people to learn? I'm going to be doing another keynote on a topic I care about a lot. It's called living with your legacy, because everybody's like, oh, I want to work on brand new stuff. And I feel like, my career is going down the toilet because I'm working on legacy software, which is, so I want people to, to help people understand, like, it's normal. And here's some of the things you can do. And, so totally different kind of topics. And then I'm going to do like this deep dive on EF. Of course, I've got a bunch of Pluralsight courses on the plate that I have to get working on. And I'm having fun doing coaching for software, the software teams at companies, or, software companies, coaching and doing some work there. So I really like that.
That's amazing. Yeah. I look up to you so much. And I thank you for taking the time to talk to me and inspire a whole lot more people, hopefully.
Oh, thank you,
hopefully
Shelley.
A lot of people
thank you.
Listen to this.
Such a pleasure, and so nice to finally face to face with you.
I know.
This way.
All right.
Zoom face. All right. Thanks
Bye-bye.
Again.
Today's episode is sponsored by Pluralsight. Pluralsight is the premier learning platform for technology skills. With a Pluralsight subscription, you can have access to thousands of courses created by industry experts, including myself, covering topics from programming languages to soft skills, including leadership and management. Visit tiarasandtech.com/Pluralsight to get started with a free 10-day trial today. If you want to support us, please like, subscribe, and share this episode with your fellow gems. Let me know in the comments what other topics you would like me to cover. Thanks for watching or listening, and have a great day.